So this could be old news by the time that you see this because I schedule my videos to be uploaded in advance, but Alibre has come out with version 22, and this new version has a lot of new features. I think one of my favorites is the sketch environment is really just about perfect. It makes snapping really easy. I think it's a huge improvement from version 21, which I didn't even know 21 was really all that lacking until I tried this. And also you can import tracing images, and importing tracing images helped me make this Saab Gripen, or JAS-39. I think it's an amazing plane, very similar to the Rafale in a few ways and different in others, but they were born from the same project. And the JAS-39 can be made pretty easily in Alibre. So let's get started on making that, and hopefully this will be a reasonable way to show how to do tracing images. Let's go with a new part. So I've switched to Alibre Atom for this. I think that license is going to be more relevant for most people watching this, and if you have the Pro license, there's not much difference. You can just follow right along. So the first thing I want to do is import a tracing image, which will be from the reference section, and we want a target plane here. Now, this view cube in Alibre version 22 is also, I believe, new to this version. Very handy, right? You can click on the corner and get an isometric view really easily. Let's start with the top view. That's the XZ plane, and of course we know that that's the top view because this plane is parallel to the top of the cube. Let's go to the tracing image now and import a top image. Now, of course, this is rotated, so if I enter 90, looks like it's flipped the wrong way, so I'm going to enter 270 and click on Move Image. I'm going to click on the top of my view now, and of course we want the plane to sit towards the front of the cube, which we know that this is the front, and the front of the plane is oriented here, so we know that we have the correct orientation. And before I forget, I'll make this 50% transparent. Now going to the top view, I can see my origin pretty clearly. I just want to move my image to align well with the origin. So coming up here, we're at negative 3.8. Maybe I'm going to try 3.85 and see how that works. How about 3.75? That might dip us down a little bit too far. So negative 3.7. And there we seem to be about dead center there. So I'm going to say OK on that. So I have one image in my planar space. Now if you haven't used this before, you can always edit this by going to Tracing Images in the tree, Editing, and there's your menu back with all of your settings that you can change if you need to. Let's import a side view now on the YZ plane. Again, going to Tracing Images, and I'll browse for my side view. We'll go to my right here and try to align this as best as we can. I'll change the transparency down to 50%. I'll change our Y offset here. And I'm just getting this to be relatively close. Now I don't like the way that the nose of the plane turned out, and I don't think it looks very realistic. So this time around I'm going to be making some mild changes. Let's try 0.605. That looks about right. And then 0.3, negative 3.395. Let's try that. Nope. So that's about right. I'll go with negative 3.83. And these images seem to be well scaled and positioned because the engines appear to be pretty close between the two images. I'd say definitely close enough for what we need to do. Perhaps one of the most important parts, the front image. We're going to go Tracing. We'll choose a target plane of the front plane and browse for a front image here. And we seem to be well scaled throughout. I'm going to set this to 50% transparency, and we'll start moving this upward. So we're going to say OK to that, and I guess I'd better make it a little bit more transparent again so you can see through it easier. All right, so we have all of these images, and they seem to be well scaled, right? The tail seems to be the right length, the wingspan seems to be the right length. And if you have trouble with scale on these images, you can always change the scale down here. And as I've said a lot in previous videos, that if you need to scale this to the correct size before starting to draw it, you would do something like make a sketch element a set amount of length and scale the picture to match that specified sketch element. And you can use the X and Y scales for that. The other thing that you can do is just make your thing and scale the finished product to whatever size that you want. Because I'm not too concerned, this isn't a real project, this is just showing how to do something. I'm not too concerned with scale, but that's how you can if that's important to you. So if I take a look at a picture of a real JAS-39, you can see that the body narrows in right here. And in my first revision of this, I didn't really capture a narrowing body, so I'll account for that a bit later on. I also don't have as good of a nose right here, and so we ought to focus on a better quality nose this time around as well. Other than that, I think we're ready to get started here. Now, when I take a look at this, you can see that there's a bit of a curve there, so we have, I would say, a rather complex body moving forward. And how I'm going to approach this is create my body first and then create the intakes as a separate thing. I'll probably make the canopy separate from the body to simplify the loft. And I'm going to loft this body here where I have a current, cross section that just changes slightly up into here, and then we'll start adding the more complex wider body, and then we'll have it narrow as it comes back to here and widen a little bit again. This will not be the most simple aircraft I've ever made, and it's fortunate that Alibre can handle it, right? So to change my nose, you can kind of tell if you look from the top that the nose really was part of the single loft that I used. And I'd like to update that by making a totally different loft here. So what I'm going to do is activate a sketch in my XY plane. And of course the origin is on my nose. And so I'm going to create a generic nose. In fact, you know what I'll do is do a revolve, and that will better account for the point. So I'll deactivate my sketch, and it doesn't look like I have anything that showed up in my tree because it was an empty sketch. Nice feature there too. So activate a sketch over here, and I can make sort of a pointy nose with a revolve. So it won't match our sketch entirely, but I think it's pretty well worth it. So there's my sketch. I'm going to click on this and add in a vertical constraint, which it appears that it's already vertical because I have a right angle relation to a horizontal element. So that was kind of a moot point, but I will add in a dimension here. That's just to lock it down. I won't be using very many dimensions in this though, because it's really not needful. Maybe I'll add in, an angle or something. So my angle, 5 degrees is fine, and it looks like we're fully constrained. So we're going to deactivate the sketch, and we're going to do a revolve, but I'm going to revolve halfway around instead of all the way around. So we come over here to revolve. We're going to say our angle is 180. Our axis will be here. So nice to actually be able to choose it from the tree. And we'll reverse so that our revolved side goes over here, right? So if I actually zoom out here and take a look what I've done, in fact, this is why I've got a space mouse so that I can maneuver around this pretty well. There is my revolve. And if I go to my front view, there we are, sitting halfway. And half because we're going to be doing some rather complex lofts, and these lofts are going to be done in half so that they mirror perfect. If you try to make symmetric sketches, it's more constraints to add, And sometimes, especially if you don't use the same number of elements, which is the best practice anyway, they tend to twist as you go. So we're going to try to use the same number of elements and do it in half so that we have no concern about things lofting wrong. I'm going to activate a sketch on the back face of my little point here, and I'm going to say project a sketch. We're going to create an actual sketch figure from this face and maintain association, and that way we can do sort of a continuous loft. A really nice feature that Alibre gives us is that we can do normal to profile lofting. It really opens up the possibilities for easily doing some complex things. I'm going to create a reference plane now. Whoops, not a sketch rather, but a reference plane. So I'm going to click on this front thing and we'll go to reference plane here. And if I go to my right view, I want to ask myself, at what point do I wish to start creating my nose? So we'll add this as a plane and we'll choose an offset distance. And of course I'll reverse my offset. And with my normal to profile capability, I'll probably go right here. So we'll loft normal to the profile and up, and maybe normal to that profile as well. And we can kind of play with that as we go. What would the best geometry be? So let's sketch out the cross-sectional area of this front sort of cockpit area. So I'm going to get on my newly created plane here, right? That's plane 2, because I think I created a plane and and then it was ended up being okay. Hope I catch that in the edit. Let's go with making 2 lines now. A line here and a line up to here. And that appears to be where the top and bottom is. And I'm just going to stick that right on top of our sketching plane here. And now I want to use a spline. And I'll do a 4-point spline. And I'm going to do my best to get this spline to be tangent to horizontal up here, and to get it to really hug the curvature at the bottom, right? So I'm trying to get a spline that's going to be tangent at both of its endpoints, and I have to do this visually. I'm not sure that tangent to spline, or spline tangency rather, is a supported feature right now. So I'm just going to try to play with this and get this as close as I can to be tangent at both ends and to match our profile. And that probably doesn't look too bad. Maybe a little bit higher. All right. So I'll deactivate the sketch, and I'm not going to worry about fully constraining this because fully constraining splines is a different animal entirely. I also want to go to view and make sure, if I'm not already, that I'm going to toggle my sketches so I can see the sketch that I've just made. We're going to go to the top now, and I have to go just off center to show the sketch, but that looks like it's a nice fit to that edge in that view. Let's go to the right, and again just barely off. It looks like that we're filling that area pretty well, so we're matching our tracing images well, and that's what we want. I want to do another plane now. So head on back to model, hit plane, and I'm going to choose my XY as my reference. And I don't want to choose a plane that I've created as a reference, because if I had make any adjustments to my plane and it's referencing another plane, that's a really easy way to make a big mess. So I'm going to start to move this outwards. We'll go to the right view here and think about if I just have a body that's going to be running this far. The next important point is probably going to be right in here because our body is going to begin to change. Right, so I want to make a plane right there, and in fact you can see how the engine intake here is drafted just a little bit. I made this model in the Pro license as kind of a fun fact, and this draft is the only feature that I used that is unique to the Pro license. Every other feature that I've used on this model that I've already made is actually not a part of the Pro license. You can get it in Atom as well. So kind of a nice little fun thing there that the Pro license is that powerful, which I think is pretty cool. Let's come back here. I guess 2.4 looks pretty good, right? And we want to make roughly the same profile, but loft between our splines. So we're going to close that. We're going to activate our sketch onto the plane we've just made. And now we think we're about level with our engine. And so I'm going to make another line. And in fact, it's probably a reasonable idea to, and I might even be able to create, let's create a sketch figure. We're going to choose this part of our sketch and this part of our sketch, and we'll click this to maintain association. That makes a nice reference so that if I update this profile will update as well. And again, if I go to my view and make sure, I guess I don't have a view cube if I'm in a sketch, so I'll go to the right. We'll ignore that. You can kind of see our body would be about the same level, and then it will start to come up again. So maybe it would be nice to have it come down, though. I think that might be more realistic to how the plane looks. Yeah, I think it either stays level or it comes down a little bit more. I'll have it come down just a bit. So we'll go back into our sketch 4. And I am going to have that come down. Great. So it looks like that's probably the lowest that our plane will come down. Now I just want to create a multi-point spline that is going to start to recognize our difference in geometry, right? We start to come out there a little bit. And we want our spline to be about horizontal. About horizontal down there. It seems like it does that pretty well. So we should have a closed sketch. We'll deactivate sketch. No, we don't have a closed sketch. So let's go back to edit. And it looks like right there and there we will create a coincident relation. All right. We're going to go to plane. We're going to go to the right now. And we get kind of a local maximum right there. So let's see if we can position that to the local maximum. Right about there, negative 3.1. We're going to create another active sketch. And this is a bit hard because you can't see very well around the image. But it looks like our body will dip a little bit lower, so I'm going to make that lower preemptively. And coming to the right. Doesn't seem too bad. We'll raise that to be about the size of our local max. Yeah, that fits pretty well. We'll go back to the front view now. And I'm going to do a multi-point spline. And I just did a quick draw there to compare where we're currently at with where we need to be. It does look like the body gets a lot wider. You can see the tip of that body there. And I think that's actually going to match not too badly from the front. From the side, I think we do kind of achieve that local maximum. All right. I think that's all right then. And if we want to see sort of how we're looking right now, then we can. I want to go to sketch 2, and let's edit that. So I've imported this, and this came in as one sketch element, right? So I'm going to get rid of that and draw a line so that we have 2 sketch elements, and then we have a consistent number of sketch elements between all profiles that we would loft between. And so if we get that started, I'm just going to do a preliminary loft to make sure that nothing looks crazy. We'll generate to last feature, and we'll choose loft, and we can see we started out with sketch 5. Let's actually clear all and start out with sketch 2, 3, and I can choose from the graphics display here 4 and 5, and if I say OK, then you can kind of see what our body is looking like, and it actually seems to be matching pretty well. You know, whenever you make something for the second time, it always goes smoother. So once we start adding profiles here, then this is going to start coming up, and we'll recognize that local minimum and things. So this is looking great. Now let's actually delete that loft and continue with some sketching in planes. We're going to go to activate, not activate sketch. You know, this is the second time I've done that. I've just been using FreeCAD the last few days, and I think some of my habits are kind of rubbing off. So I'm going to come back here. We'll choose our right view, and we want perhaps this sort of minimum, not minimum, but maybe perhaps local minimum part of the body that we're lofting. I'm going to say 3.55 and then negative. There we are. That's not too bad. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. And I think I'm going to have the body come up here to this point, and then our cockpit or our canopy is going to show this kind of natural reduction. So I'm going to come over here, activate my sketch. I kind of got to guess again where I'm at. So I'm going to make a vertical line, say up to here, and a little lower, right? And this way these tracing lines are super helpful. So we'll come down to about there. Back to the front view now with the reset view button. And it looks like we want to go to the very bottom here. So the very bottom there. Excellent. Again with a spline. Again, I'm taking a guess as to where these profiles are. Trying to remain horizontal there. It's probably best to put a little extra point to make it as horizontal as possible and allow for some fine adjustments here. So we come down here, we look at this from the top. That seems to be about where we want the body to be. Now if I look at this profile where it's just where that canopy ends, and I go to my picture here, the profile right where the canopy ends looks good, and then it looks like it thins up a lot, right? So we'll have to do a narrow profile for our next one. So I think we're okay. We'll deactivate sketch, and let's go to the next one. Activate. I keep doing that, so apologies. I want to highlight this plane and not activate sketch, but go to my plane. And we're going to come down here, and I'm positive, so I'm going to reverse and go to the right now. So this is about where our body should be the thinnest, and that's what I want to capture next, right? So we want to have this sort of thinnest part of our body right here represented. So we'll close, select our plane, and activate a sketch. And this will be challenging because I didn't model this to really capture the thinnest point of the body. So there'll be a little bit of guesswork here, and actually I should start with a line, and we'll choose our vertical point, and it's probably going to be consistent. See, it looks like our body has kind of a consistent height coming back. So I'm going to actually keep that relatively consistent, and we're going to go to a line down here and keep kind of a consistent height there. Now our spline, we want it to thin out pretty quickly. It'll actually have a curvature down here towards the wing, and we snap. I think that would probably do it. Maybe down there. We just want to show how thin that body is. Okay, we're going to close that. We do become quite thin, and then we thicken out a little bit as we get towards the engine, right? So we thicken out right about here. So I'm going to make a plane again that runs right to the base of that wing is probably an appropriate spot. Plane. And again, I should reverse. So we're going to activate that. We're going to spline now, and we want to go a little bit more wide than we have. But the body would almost seem, in a way, semicircular. So I'm just going to add a bunch of points and make sure that that keeps us kind of horizontal up there. That's probably not bad. So we'll deactivate that. Oh, but I need to, well, I did make this body too wide initially, but I think I could go a bit wider. So we're going to edit a sketch there. How about that? That's not too bad. One more plane, and this time we would just want to mark right where the rear nozzle is going to start. Plane. Let's go to the right view, and I accidentally added a plane, so we're going to have to remove that item. All right. And let's try 2.5 and close that. Again, we'll create a line. I'm going to reference my right view. Now I do have a back view that I'll probably upload, but you can just use these side views too. Right, and that should be our Gripen. Reset the view, and let's say that the rear is now going to be totally semicircular. I don't think I have, I think I only have a center point arc in the hobby version, so we'll work around that. We just want to make sure that compared to the origin, we are vertical. And that creates a half circle. So going back to our side view, I'll actually just go there and add in a fixed constraint so that I can adjust this the way that I wish. Right there. We'll deactivate. Let's make a Gripen Body, shall we? Starting with sketch 2, we're going to create a loft to sketch. And I can choose from the graphics display. I think it's easier to visually see it. All of my cross sections. And let's see how we are without any additional. That fits really well. And this reduction here in diameter, as it comes down and you get sort of a taper downward, that's for efficiency. You get less drag with that taper, substantially so actually. And yeah, we are looking a lot more realistic to how the Gripen actually looks than my first run. So I'm very happy with that. Okay, next. Well, actually, next I think it's just a mirror, and then we should call it done because I've been on this video for quite a bit. So I'm going to pull in this revolution and this loft. So I have revolution, all these planes, and a loft. These planes are not dependent on this revolution. So I bet I could just actually move my revolution all the way down. And that kind of organizes my tree a little bit better. I'll move this plane up here. There we go. Now I select my revolution, my loft, and everything is perfectly in half. So I'll choose mirror. And actually, I guess I choose my revolution and loft there. My mirror plane is going to be right here. We get a nice preview. We're going to say OK. And there we have our Gripen Body. Way better and way smoother than the last model I have uploaded. So this looks great. I'll make this available for download on GrabCAD. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it was, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.